Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Sailing the East podcast. I'm Bela and Mike. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. Normally, Mike and I co-host a show, and we discuss a sailing destination, maybe a passage, and even discuss some equipment every now and then. But today, we're going to have a guest on the show, and our guest is Ryan Miller. He's a yacht broker, and we're going to talk about why you should use a buyer's broker when you're buying a boat. Ryan represented me in my recent purchase of our sailboat. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Latitude Yacht Brokerage Services.
Absolutely. Started Latitude in 2009, so we're in our 11th going on 12th year, I believe, and was a broker for a few years before that as selling new boats, and decided I wanted to open up a brokerage firm and focused on used boat inventory and helping buyers and sellers. And we've been doing great, and it's the team's really grown. We have, I believe, there's 8 of us now, and we have typically 60 or 80 boats in inventory throughout New England. We have an office in New York and presence in Boston and also Florida, and otherwise we're very focused in the Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts area. But we are Florida licensed and bonded, and do a lot of transactions down in Florida in the winter months when it makes sense to head south to find good inventory.
Yeah. So your headquarters, I'll call it, is located in Newport, Rhode Island. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. Actually, we're right over the bridge in Jamestown, right where the Newport and Jamestown ferry land on the Jamestown shores. We have an office right there next to the Harbor Master's office.
Oh, very nice. So today I want to kind of focus on buying a boat and the services that you provide. You provided, like for me, when we purchased our boat, and then maybe at some future time we can do another podcast about selling a boat and sort of how that process works and the services you provide there. So when it comes to buying a boat, I think almost everybody knows about the various different websites where boats are listed, and is that a good place for prospective buyers to start?
It absolutely is. The job as a broker working with a buyer has definitely changed over the years. Even since I started in this career, you used to drive through boat yards and look for sale by owner signs, and look at, up here in New England, we have Soundings magazine, and it was always, combing the classified ads to try to find inventory. And as brokers, we were very active communicating back and forth with what our central listings are, from office to office of different brokers, so that everyone knew what boats were available. But nowadays, just like in real estate, everything is on realtor.com and Zillow. In the marine world, everything's on Yacht World and Boat Trader primarily are going to be the main places you're going to want to go look. And there are a lot of other sites out there, a lot of other MLSs, but in general, the other sites are duplicate listings off of what's on Boat Trader or Yacht World, and sometimes you will find that the inventory is not as updated. The boats they're ghost listings, or they're boats that sold a while ago. So to get the most, I think, up-to-date inventory snapshot, it would be to use yachtworld.com or boattrader.com.
So when I work with a buyer's broker, like I did with you, you have access to all of the boats that are listed on any of those sites, and you can help me find out about any of those boats and purchase one of those boats, not just your listings. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. No, most of the time when I'm working with a buyer, it won't be a boat that my company has listed. It's just like real estate, where you're going out there, you find an agent that you want to work with, that you connect with, and then that agent goes on your behalf and searches for a boat for you.
Yes.
I will say there is a lot of fun in just as a buyer doing the shopping yourself too, late at night or early in the morning, perusing Yacht World, and that's fine. And we're okay with that. I client over the weekend shoot me a few listings that he saw that were of interest to them. And then I kind of took over from there and contacted the listing agent and figured out what else I could learn about the boat that's not online.
Yeah. So let's say you're sitting in your office and the phone rings and the person on the other end says, "Hi, I'm Bela. I'm looking to buy a sailboat." So take me through your process for getting from that call to, sort of moving it along.
Absolutely. Just from doing this for so long, I can try to help a buyer decide what they want, and just look at the things that are on their to-do list, what their cruise, where they intend to cruise, what type of cruising. Is it a family, a couple? Do they want to do offshore, live aboard, power or sail? Kind of weigh all those options, and just by listening to what the customer intends, I can help try to steer, and kind of come up with a wide range of boats that would kind of be a good fit. And then we typically from there, I'd send off some examples of different boats that are available. And then that way they can look online, and then you start getting into not just the purpose, but also the aesthetics. We don't like the dark wood, or we want this, or we want that. We love the colored hull, or we want a white hull. And then we kind of go through the process and narrow it down. All pretty much either, sitting in the office, or nowadays it's all remote. And then really at that point, then narrow down the list to a few prospective boats, and then go look at them in person.
Yeah.
And that's important. You have to get on the boat. But it's very overwhelming what's online. So we try to narrow it down first beforehand.
Yes. I recall that was very helpful when you and I were working on getting a boat for us, is this notion of helping me think through how we're going to use the boat, what we're going to use it for, what are the features that we wanted on a boat that worked for Elaine and I, versus, different types of uses take you down different paths.
Right.
And do you find that people sort of have a dream for what they want, and then after spending some time thinking about it and talking about it, and you sort of coaching them through that change, not that the dream changes, but they come to a realization they're not sailing around the world. They're not going to live on the boat full time, and it's basically doing coastal cruising up and down the bay or hopping along the coast someplace.
It does change a lot, and one ways it changes is budget. And one thing with boating that's tough is it is expensive, and the purchase price of the boat is just the beginning. And a lot of the times, buyers come to me where so much of their budget is into that purchase. And a lot of times it's, kind of educating into some of the yearly expenses and practicalities of it, and then adjusting accordingly. And sometimes, a lot of it's also just the size of the boat. It's just, might be too big to operate just two people or single-handed. And, so yeah, it does change from that initial phone call a lot of times.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the real values of having a buyer's broker, is someone with your vast experience can help us sort through all of that stuff and point things out that I've never thought about.
Right. And, I think years ago, a broker was a lot more helpful as a buyer's agent with the finding the boat. Now with everything online, I will say what you're looking at on your computer screen and what I'm looking at is usually the same thing. We will have a chance of getting insight of some listings before they go live, but for the most part, what you're seeing is what I'm seeing. So it's not so much the finding the boat for you, it's the helping you digest all the information and sort through them and make an educated decision.
Yeah. So let's say, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Let's say we have a short list of 5 or 6 boats that together we've decided we want to go look at. So take me through how that works.
Sure. And that's really, from my perspective, when the job really starts for me. It's going through the process of selecting the boat. And then once you select the boat, going through the offer and inspection process. That's really the most important. So, for the most part, most listings are fairly accurate online. There's some that are not, and the photos aren't up to date, or the listing doesn't have a lot of details. But I'm not a accredited marine surveyor, but I can know what I'm looking at. And when we go look at the boats, I can point out a lot of the good and the bad. And you really just need to see them in person to be able to judge them. So that, we go look at some boats, and I can kind of say which one's a good one, which one we should consider going after. And then really that's when it gets started. And at that point, we have access to proprietary industry sold boat data. So I would, advise my client on what a good offer would be. And then, draft up the purchase and sales agreement and represent them through that process, negotiating on their behalf, like in real estate.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I found many similarities between buying a home and a house, a condo, whatever, maybe doing a real estate transaction, and buying a boat. There were significant similarities in the process.
There is. It's a lot more like buying a house than it is like buying a car or something
yes.
else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I do remember when we went around looking at boats together, I found it very helpful because you pointed things out that I didn't see, or that were I wasn't looking at. Right, I was focused on something else, and you'd say, "Hey, Bela, take a look at this. This is really nice," or "Gee, this may be a problem," and it really helped me sort of narrow down that list of 5 or 6 boats to 1 or 2.
Right.
And I think that's a great value and skill that, again, a person like you can bring to the table.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is the survey process.
Yes.
So there's a few things, to kind of make it real brief, that the few things broker does, buyer's agent. One is for putting in the offer. Sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit, but I'm getting ahead of myself with survey. When you put in an offer, one of the biggest benefits of having a buyer's agent is when you put in the offer, it's standard 10% refundable deposit that would be held in Latitude's escrow account, versus if you go directly on to the ad and you contact the listing broker, it'd technically be it'd be the seller's broker's escrow account. So having a little bit of separation there, where the money's being held in escrow on our side of the table, gives a little added protection for the buyer.
Yes.
And then, of course, the deposit's fully refundable for, through your inspection process until you decide to accept the vessel and commit to it to close.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things the buyer's agent, financially offers.
Yeah. And let me just interject here to be clear. Using a buyer's agent doesn't cost you any money. Right. I didn't pay you anything. It was a free service. You get paid by the seller, in essence,
right?
Just like in real estate.
Right. And it comes out of the boat proceeds at closing. So yeah, no, there's no money due up front, or, so yes, yeah, we would be paid at closing, and it would come out of the boat proceeds.
Yeah. So there's no, I see no reason not to use a buyer's broker.
Right. Yeah, no, the listing broker we typically would share the commission with the listing broker, and they're going to take the commission anyway. So there's no added cost. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So after we have so we use a standard sale and purchase agreement. You help negotiate that price. The escrow is held in your account. And until we sort of 100% commit to that purchase, that escrow is refundable. That deposit is refundable. And then what happens after that? Then we typically went to survey, if I remember correctly.
Right. So we're members of the Yacht Brokers Association of America, and we use their standard purchase and sales agreement and all their agreements and paperwork. And it's great stuff. It's been refined for the past 20 some odd years, every year by a team of Admiralty lawyers. They update it, make sure it's current with, individual state laws. And it's a very buyer-friendly agreement. It allows you to secure the boat, so no other buyers, the seller can't entertain other offers, but it also allows you the time to do your due diligence to see if it's something you want to commit to. So it's a very buyer-friendly agreement, and very fair for the buyer, the seller, the brokers. It's been vetted a lot over the years. So I just wanted to point that out. But yes, once we're under agreement, then it's to go to survey process. And depending on where the boat is and what the type of boat is, typically I don't, in an effort to be neutral, I will never recommend just one surveyor, but I would try to make sure that you, the buyer, are connected with the right surveyors in the area. Up here in New England, it's a lot of SAMS surveyors, the Society of Accredited Marine Surveyors, and there's multiple, and there's a directory where you can select and interview. And if it's down in Florida, it's NAMS, the National Association of Marine Surveyors. There's a lot more of NAMS surveyors down there. So kind of help point you in the right direction in selecting a surveyor and interviewing that surveyor. And then it gets to the logistics of actually, planning the survey day. So it's the short haul, or if it's out of the water, it's the launching it to putting it in, coordinating with the captain, the boat owner, the marina, the surveyor, the buyers, everyone's schedules. As a broker, I kind of help to facilitate and make that all happen. And then when it comes time to the day of survey, for sellers, a lot of times my job would be to protect the asset, to protect the boat, to make sure no one hurts it. And I'm always kind of keeping an eye out for that. But for buyers, it's really to kind of audit the day and make sure the surveyor is doing what he's supposed to be doing and looking at everything. And then also just maintaining the schedule, making sure everyone's staying on track, that we don't miss our window for short haul, or sometimes there's tides, or, there's lots of moving parts on that survey day. So just help to guide it all through.
Yeah. I remember how complex that was. And I was really happy I wasn't the one coordinating that and juggling all those things to make it happen on a particular day, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a lot when you have to deal with the yard, different yards, and their constraints. A lot of times they want to haul the boat over the lunch break, so it's not taking up travel of time. So there's a lot of those moving parts that I try to assist with, for sure.
Yeah, and then let's say the survey comes back. It has a couple of issues, maybe nothing major. We decide we want to go forward with the boat purchase. And then what typically happens after that?
Well, after survey, once we get I'm also there with the buyers. It's very important for a buyer to be there on the day of survey, because that survey report is very overwhelming. It's typically 25 pages long with 3 or 4 pages worth of findings and suggestions, where those can be overwhelming, but being there in person and actually seeing it and being there with the surveyor, so the surveyor can point out the issues as they find them, is important too. Because once they're on a piece of paper, it's hard to digest that information, and you'll have one bullet point will be a light bulb out, and you're talking about a $2 part. And the next bullet is a lot more important bullet, and kind of being able to weigh those things and then digest all that information and go through the survey with the buyer is something I typically help with after the survey.
Yeah, excellent. And then I remember we did some negotiating on price, yes, some back and forth, and you were instrumental in that, in guiding all the emotions that are now at a feverish pace by now.
Yep. It's, not all things on a survey report are really acceptable to renegotiate. Boats are sold as is, where is, and it is a used boat, and it's not perfect. It's not supposed to be, but there's also some, unspoken, unwritten expectations of, operation and safety that really are, I think most sellers would agree that, there's some fair expectations, and we'd want to negotiate to try to, either have those issues addressed or reduce the price to address them.
Yeah, I remember the principle that you spoke to me about was this notion of, if things were disclosed in the listing as not working, or worn or not there, then that's fine. It's the hidden things that maybe you found that were a surprise, like, oh, I didn't realize that. Those are the ones that potentially give you an opportunity to maybe renegotiate something.
It does, yeah. If there's something in the inventory and they're advertising that it has it, well, if it's not working, it should be, and that's a chance to address it. One thing I would just caution buyers to do is try to have the price reduced versus having the seller address the issue, because although it's sometimes easier to have them address it. And there's some things it does make sense to have done before closing just because of potential logistics or safety. But at the end of the day, you want to be supervising that repair, and you want your contractors that you're going to hold accountable to do that repair, so you can supervise it and have it done the way you want it done versus it potentially not being done to your level of expectations by the seller. And that's where things can get complicated. So it's best to just, agree on a reduced price and then take care of.
Yeah. I think you cut out there. So the last thing I heard was it's best to negotiate a.
Oh, it's best to negotiate the price, and then you as the buyer take care of those issues after closing.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I remember that, and that was the path we went down, and for us that worked very, very well. And then I also remember, you helped with the sort of documentation and the title and the making sure there's no liens on the boat. There's a lot of stuff going on, and there was a lot of moving parts, and I didn't have to, I just sort of, you helped me through all of that and did most of the work.
Right. So that's kind of that last important piece after there's the helping to buy and negotiation and the holding the deposit, and then the survey process. It's its own thing that we just talked about. And then the last is the buying of the boat, the closing of the boat. It's a lot of times, if it's a Coast Guard documented boat, we work with a documentation service. One of the biggest things, as you said, is doing running the abstract of title with the U.S. Coast Guard. So if the boat's Coast Guard documented, the Coast Guard is the only place to record a first preferred ship's mortgage. So it's the closest thing you can get to like a what do you call it? When you're buying a house.
Title search.
Title search. Thank you. It's title insurance, right? No.
Yep.
Anyway, is to run that abstract of title, and that's going to show the chain of ownership, who's owned the boats, and if there was liens, and if those liens have been released and satisfied. So that, because the liens follow the boat, not the person. So if there is a lien on the boat, it becomes your responsibility once you own the boat to pay it, which is kind of crazy. So it's very important to find out if there is any liens and make sure that they're taken care of before closing and recorded. And then if the boat's not Coast Guard documented and it's titled in a state, it's making sure on the title, that's where they kind of like a car, where the bank would hold the title and record a lien on that actual piece of paper. With the Coast Guard, it's filed electronically, so there's no way to tell by the Coast Guard document if there's a lien or not. So you have to do that search. So that's very important. The other thing to be mindful of are hidden liens, and those are a little scary because there's always a chance that there is a lien on the boat that lien holder hasn't come forward yet. And that's typically, the hidden liens are workman's liens. So if there was a contractor that hasn't been paid, they can come after the boat, not the person, but the boat. The safest way to check for those before closing is to call the boatyard that the boat's been stored at, and to make sure that boatyard has been paid up.
Yeah. Very good. So, then I remember we bought the boat and it was ours, which was a great day.
Yes. Yeah. And then it's, of course, we as a broker, our job is to make sure that you get, the clear title on it and get the paperwork. So typically the seller signs the paperwork first. Signs the boat over to you, and then we hold that paperwork in escrow, and then make sure that the seller receives funds, help you with the transfer, whether it's if they're a bank or certified check or a wire or a boat loan. Make sure the seller's paid, and then we release the paperwork.
Yeah. So all in all, it was a wonderful process. So Ryan, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about if I'm interested in finding a seller's broker. What are some tips you can get me to finding a good one?
Sure, sure. And before I get to that, one
Oh
other,
yeah,
I
sure.
really thought of two other points. Another thing we help with is insurance and financing, helping buyers, especially first-time buyers, find the right insurance agent to be able to get, a reasonable policy, and then working with marine lenders for boat finance loans. So that's another thing as part of the kind of the offer process is sometimes to get pre-qualified. And then after survey, making sure that you have insurance in place before you accept the boat and go to close.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anyway,
I'm glad you brought up the insurance because that has gotten a little bit more complicated recently and a little more challenging, particularly
it
for
has, for sure.
new buyers or inexperienced buyers if they're making a big move to a larger boat.
It has, yes, it's gotten complicated for sure.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, so how do we find a good buyer's broker?
Well, there's always different forums online where there's you can see that people have made recommendations, and I also highly recommend going on that company's Google or Yelp account and reading reviews and kind of vetting the person that way. But it's pretty much all of my business is word of mouth. Most of the clients I've met is from a connection from a previous client or someone that I know. So I would ask around. That's very important. Definitely would try to get someone local to you, or local to kind of where you think you'll be boating or where the inventory of boats are. It's one of the reasons why I opened up Latitude in Newport is because of the concentrations of good inventory here. So we have buyers come from all over the country and the world, but right now with COVID, it's been a little bit more local. But so that's one thing is definitely do your homework, read the reviews, ask around, if you have a local boatyard that you think you're going to keep the boat at that's down the street, or if you're in that type of situation, you can ask the marina who they'd recommend. Our relationship with boatyards in New England is very important. So we know the different service managers and yard managers, and they send us their clients all the time. Another thing is to kind of, if you have a general idea of the type of boat you want, then would be to try to find a broker that would be appropriate for that type of boat. Whether it's a sport fishing boat or a sailboat, to speak with the brokers that have that inventory.
Got it. So you're saying that sometimes their inventory that you can find on their website may be reflective of the types of boats that maybe, I won't use the word specialized, but they tend to have more of and maybe more knowledge of.
More knowledge of, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Now, is there various different certifications or licenses that brokers have? Is that another way to sort through this?
There is, yes. So the only two states that require a broker be licensed are California and Florida. So we are licensed and bonded in Florida, not California, but the other states have not gotten that restrictive yet. But the YABA there, our national association, I think has responded well to that lack of oversight on individual state levels and has helped bolster the profession. So we're a member of YABA. So I'd recommend you find a broker that's a member of YABA, and even more important, a broker that is a certified professional yacht broker. So and that's there's a test to take, and also recertification credits to maintain your license, your quote unquote license. But so I am a member of the CPYB program, the Certified Professional Yacht Broker program, and our company is a certified professionally endorsed brokerage house. So all of our brokers are CPYB.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something to look for.
Yeah. And that's, for when you're in the state of Florida, it's definitely more making sure that they're licensed. If you're outside of Florida, it's more about, finding a CPYB broker. Yeah.
So one other a thing I thought of while we were talking about this is let's say, as again a buyer's broker, let's say you're in Newport, and let's say the boat that I find or we find together is in Portland, Oregon. How do you help me with that process, right? Because that's a little bit
Sure,
different.
sure. I actually just went through a survey with a boat in it was in Washington State, and it was I can't remember the name of the island, but it was a really remote island where the surveyor had to take a ferry and sleep overnight to. Speaking of survey restraints, the surveyor, it was like a 2-day trip for the surveyor to get to the boat,
Wow.
but in that case, I didn't fly out there because it was a smaller boat. But I helped from afar to select the survey and schedule everything. And actually, the buyer and the seller weren't there either, which was interesting. One of my more interesting recent ones was doing a purchase, helping a buyer purchase a boat down in BVI during early COVID lockdown. The buyer was in New Hampshire, I was in Rhode Island, and the boat was in Sir Francis Drake Channel down in BVI's, and we did a full survey, sea trial, all via Zoom, which wasn't ideal, but given the times, it worked.
Yeah.
But typically I'd travel to the survey. So I'm flying down to Key West this week for a survey on a Jeanneau 41 down there. And I was, we'll travel to where the boat is.
Yeah. Yes. So the point being is that geography is really not a limitation. So if you find a buyer's broker that you like, you connect with really well, they have the right accreditations, they can help you purchase a boat fundamentally anywhere in the world.
Yes. Yeah. If you're looking for a broker as a seller, you need a broker that's local, because the broker has to be close to the boat to be able to show it and get clients on board and really properly, present the boat. But from a buyer's side, we'll go anywhere. We closed on boats in St. Martin this year, in Texas. I surveyed that boat in Washington, and we usually do more, but with COVID, it's a little bit of a different year. But we're always traveling.
Well, very good. So one more question, and then we'll wrap this up. We've been at it for 30 minutes or so. What are some of the mistakes that buyers make, or what tips can you give buyers, that you see them make?
One would be if you are, and this is more for, if you are going to have a buyer's broker, I would, just recommend that if you do find a boat online, and it's very easy to click that little, contact button to ask a question, just make sure that, once you've started that conversation, that relationship with the listing broker, it gets a little bit more difficult for your buyer's agent to be involved. So I would recommend that you have your broker contact the listing broker first, and if not, and if it's just a quick question and you want to ask it, just make sure that you introduce your broker right up front, that, hey, I have a buyer's agent, but I just have this quick question, or wondering if I could see the boat this weekend, type of thing.
Yes. Very good. Any others? Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. I can't think of them all, but and that's my job as a broker, is to really just try to help and guide people through the process, because there's always a lot of mistakes, but I can't think of a particular one.
Okay.
Off the top of my head.
Well, great, Ryan. You've been a wonderful guest. I really enjoyed the assistance that you gave us in buying our boat. You were very helpful, so I thought it merited having you on the podcast. And I hope we can do a future episode at some point in time about the selling process, and sort of talking about, if I want to sell a boat, talk through the same types of things. But again, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and looking forward to seeing you on the water this summer.
Yes. We have to have a rendezvous there in Newport.
That'd be great.
Thanks again.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yep,
Take
bye-bye.
care.